March 1, 2018, dawned like any other at Coca-Cola's Atlanta headquarters. The city was just waking up, the streets still quiet, and the iconic red and white tower stood tall against the soft glow of sunrise. Inside, the hum of routine filled the air. Sunlight poured through the North Avenue Tower as executives gathered in glass-walled boardrooms, their minds focused on marketing strategies, quarterly targets, and ambitious growth plans. The energy was optimistic, the mood confident, just another day at the world's most famous beverage company. For over a century, Coca-Cola had weathered wars, depressions, and changing tastes. The company had survived prohibition, sugar shortages, and even the rise of health-conscious consumers. Its resilience was legendary, its brand woven into the fabric of American life. The day's biggest worry seemed to be the next flavor launch, or which celebrity would front the next campaign. Creative teams brainstormed, marketers debated slogans, and the future looked as bright as the morning sun. Then, suddenly, news alerts flashed across screens. President Trump had announced steep tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. The headlines were bold, the implications unclear. At first it was just another headline in a world full of them, until the details emerged. A 10% tariff on aluminum, effective almost immediately. The news spread quickly, and the mood shifted. Unease spread like a ripple through the office. Calculations began, voices grew tense, and the steady hum of productivity turned into a flurry of urgent phone calls and impromptu meetings. The sense of control was slipping away. This wasn't a PR crisis or a competitor's new product launch. It was a direct threat to their business model. The aluminum can, the very vessel that carried Coca-Cola to millions every day, was suddenly at risk. The cost of their primary packaging was about to soar, and no amount of clever marketing could fix it. The problem was bigger than branding, it was existential. Operations and finance teams faced a crisis of unprecedented scale. They scrambled to assess the impact, running numbers late into the night, searching for solutions where there seemed to be none. Emergency meetings were called, whiteboards filled with grim projections, red ink spreading across balance sheets. Every scenario looked worse than the last. Hundreds of millions of dollars were at stake. The financial future of the company and the livelihoods of thousands hung in the balance. Coca-Cola's promise of affordability was under threat. Would families still reach for a Coke if prices climbed? The question loomed large. The storm had arrived, not with a bang, but with the relentless ticking of a tariff clock. Every second brought new uncertainty, every minute a step closer to crisis. The day was no longer about selling happiness, it was about survival. The stakes had never been higher, and the path forward was anything but clear. A single policy decision had thrown a global giant into chaos. The calm was over, the storm had truly begun. To truly grasp the crisis that Coca-Cola faced, you first have to understand the humble can. It's more than just a container, it's a symbol of modern convenience and global commerce. The aluminum can is lightweight, durable, and infinitely recyclable, a marvel of efficiency that revolutionized the beverage industry. Its design allows for easy transport, long shelf life, and minimal waste, making it the perfect vessel for mass production and global distribution. Over decades, billions of dollars were invested to build a vast, intricate supply chain centered around this single package. Every link in the chain, from mining to manufacturing to shipping, was optimized for aluminum cans. Switching materials wasn't an option. The entire infrastructure, from machinery to logistics, was designed specifically for aluminum. Changing course would mean massive costs and years of disruption. Glass, while traditional, would require retooling entire factories and retraining workers, making it an impractical alternative. Plastic, on the other hand, faced growing backlash from consumers and environmentalists. And it didn't suit single servings or preserved carbonation as well as aluminum. The can was irreplaceable, the very cornerstone of Coca-Cola's business model and brand identity. Every single day, millions of cans are filled, sealed, and shipped to thirsty customers in nearly every country on Earth. This entire system depends on a steady, affordable supply of aluminum sheeting, known in the industry as can sheet. Without it, production grinds to a halt. As one of the world's largest buyers, Coca-Cola relies on a complex web of global suppliers to keep costs low and shelves stocked. But when tariffs were introduced, this delicate balance was threatened. The new policy risked severing vital supply lines overnight. The US simply couldn't meet demand alone. Bottlers across the country depended on imports to keep up with production. The result was an immediate bottleneck. Factories slowed, workers waited, and shelves risked going empty. The very material that made Coca-Cola's business possible was now threatening its future, turning a once reliable asset into a sudden liability. The tariff's immediate effect was a surge in aluminum costs, domestic and imported. American producers, shielded from competition, raised prices. Coca-Cola's bottlers faced a direct hit to their bottom line. Budgets and forecasts became obsolete overnight. The company faced a dilemma: absorb the costs and hurt profits, or raise prices and risk losing customers. Absorbing costs meant cuts, possibly jobs or innovation. Raising prices risked alienating loyal customers and losing market share. The crisis forced tough conversations down the supply chain. Bottlers had to explain price hikes to retailers and restaurants. Each step brought frustration and anxiety. The tariff was no longer just a policy, it was a disruptive force straining relationships and creating uncertainty. Thousands of businesses, big and small, felt the shockwaves. The tariff supporters saw it as a patriotic move to protect American manufacturing. The goal: revive domestic smelters and bring back lost jobs. For many, the pain felt by multinationals like Coca-Cola was a necessary consequence. The message: sell in America, use American materials. But the reality was more complex. The U.S. aluminum industry couldn't meet demand. Decades of closures left a supply gap. Building new smelters would take years and billions. The tariff created demand American producers couldn't fill, squeezing the market. Instead of punishing foreign competitors, the policy penalized American companies and consumers. Coca-Cola was forced to import and pay the tax, or pay more for scarce domestic supply. Either way, the cost landed on American businesses, the intended target missed, the burden fell at home. Coca-Cola's supply chain is a global marvel. Bauxite mined in Australia, then shipped to Canada for smelting, before traveling across continents. The aluminum is transformed into cans in the U.S., ready to be filled with the world's favorite soda. This intricate system was built for maximum efficiency and low cost, relying on stable, predictable international trade. But the aluminum tariff threw a wrench into this well-oiled machine, creating widespread chaos and confusion. Long-term contracts were suddenly upended, logistics managers scrambled to adapt to the new reality. The tariff on Canadian aluminum was especially disruptive, straining a key partnership that had lasted for decades. Can manufacturers paid more for metal and passed those costs to bottlers, who then passed them on to retailers and ultimately, consumers. The once collaborative supply chain quickly became a chain of tense negotiations and difficult conversations. The crisis exposed the underlying fragility of global trade, revealing vulnerabilities few had anticipated. Tariffs signaled a dramatic shift from open markets to protectionism, changing the rules overnight. For Coca-Cola, the siege on their supply chain was more than a disruption. It was a siege on their entire business philosophy and global vision. With no operational fix, Coca-Cola turned to politics. The company and others in the beverage industry launched a lobbying blitz in Washington. Their message: the tariff was a tax on American businesses and consumers, not foreign rivals. Executives laid out the numbers, warning of higher prices for everyday Americans. They joined coalitions, commissioned studies, and ran ad campaigns to highlight the economic harm. The goal: shift the narrative from protecting jobs to raising costs for families. Coca-Cola had to balance patriotism with advocacy, supporting American industry, but opposing blanket tariffs. They pushed for exemptions for allies like Canada and targeted action against unfair trade. It was a high-stakes campaign to educate policymakers on global supply chain realities. The fight moved from the boardroom to the halls of power. In the end, tariffs hit where it mattered most: the supermarket aisle, where everyday Americans make choices that affect their families. Despite intense lobbying from big companies and industry groups, the tariff stayed in place, unmoved by corporate pressure or consumer concern. Coca-Cola, like many other companies, had no choice but to raise prices on its iconic cans, passing the extra costs directly to shoppers. The increase was small, just a few cents per can, but for families on tight budgets, every cent counted. Those few extra coins could mean the difference between a treat and a necessity. Soda, once an affordable and simple pleasure, became a little less accessible for many, especially for children who looked forward to it as a special treat. Small businesses faced tough choices: absorb the higher costs and risk shrinking profits, or raise prices and risk losing loyal customers to bigger competitors. Ironically, the tariff, which was meant to help American workers and industries, ended up making life more expensive for those very workers and their families, squeezing household budgets even further. This episode revealed just how interconnected the modern world truly is. A decision made in a government office rippled through factories, shipping lanes, and finally, to the shelves of local stores. Trade wars aren't fought in a vacuum. They impact everyone, from executives making decisions in boardrooms to families sharing dinner at kitchen tables, each feeling the effects in their own way. The humble can of Coke became a symbol of global conflict and the unintended consequences of economic policy, reminding us that even the smallest items can carry the weight of international disputes. In a trade war, there are no clear winners. Everyone, from businesses to consumers, ends up paying a price, often in ways they never expected. The quest to protect one industry created a crisis for another, leaving everyday consumers to foot the bill and wonder if the cost was truly worth it.